Track 7.1, Unit 7, Listening 1.
Today, I have Dr. Lee, a psychologist who has studied kindness. To start us off, I want to share a story Dr. Lee told me. A few years ago, a woman went into a small cafe in South Carolina in the USA and ordered a cup of coffee. When she was finished with her coffee, she paid $100, which was much more than it cost. She told the cafe to use the extra money for customers who needed it. Why did she do this? Was she just being kind? Or could it be that she was acting out of a more basic human motivation? The will to survive. Let's listen to how Dr. Lee explained it to me. Dr. Lee?
The cafe where this took place was where local people gathered regularly. As word of the woman's generosity spread, more customers decided to also leave a little extra money as well. This happened at a time when the economy was bad, when no one knew who would get laid off next. The customers in the shop realized they needed to help each other through a difficult economic situation. The basic concept is that people are kind to each other to ensure survival. That is, it is in everyone's best interest to help one another. When we are kind, we connect with other people and create a sense of community in which to live. We do kind things because we want others to do kind things for us. In other words, we want to encourage reciprocity between people because it helps us all to survive. There are two ways reciprocity works. There's direct reciprocity, in which two people agree to a specific exchange. For example, I agree to help you move some heavy boxes, and you agree to help me review for my exam.
But that wasn't what happened in the coffee shop, was it?
That's right. The coffee shop tale is an example of indirect reciprocity. In this case, I do something for you, you then help someone else, that person goes on to help a third or fourth person. In this way, we establish that it is okay to ask one another for help. Through these acts of kindness, we build a bond with one another, be it our family, our friends, our neighbors, and by doing this, we build a sense of community that helps us all to survive.
Acts of kindness go beyond our local community too, don't they?
Sure. For example, every year there are natural disasters, such as earthquakes, floods, and forest fires. Afterward, people from other parts of the world, total strangers, respond to help. They contribute food, water, medical supplies, and other types of emergency aid that is then distributed to disaster victims. Responses to natural disasters take indirect reciprocity one step further, in the sense that individuals can't possibly expect they will get anything directly back. That said, their actions highlight that all countries are part of a global community in which it's to everyone's survival advantage to cooperate and help one another in times of need.
What makes someone risk his or her life for a total stranger? This doesn't sound like a desire for survival, and yet it is not unusual to hear reports of people who put their own lives in danger to perform acts of kindness in order to save someone they've never met before.
There are many examples of people saving total strangers. Just recently, I read a story about a car that fell into a river from a bridge nearby. There were two small children in the car. Another driver jumped into the river and saved the children. Afterward, the man who saved the children was called a hero. The man said, "I'm not a hero. If a stranger saw that my children needed help, he would help them." This man risked his own life because his first priority was to help others survive.
So you're saying by building bonds of reciprocity, we develop a sense of trust that we will take care of one another.
Yes, that's what my research shows. It's in everyone's best interest to create a sense of community. The stronger the community, the better chance we all have of living better lives and ensuring our own survival.
Track 7.2. Unit 7. Listening 2.
Our ability to survive in the future depends in part on how we adapt the way we currently construct buildings. Estimates are that by the year 2050, there will be 9 billion people in the world who need housing. If we had unlimited resources of building materials, water, and energy, this wouldn't be a concern. But we don't. Thus, the challenge now is to learn to design buildings that use resources well. We need to meet the current needs of people living today, but we can't overuse our resources now because this might make it difficult for future generations to meet their needs. With this in mind, today we're going to look at a trend called green building, which emphasizes using renewable resources like sunlight and being environmentally responsible. First, I'll explain some principles of green building. Then, I plan to focus on 2 aspects: energy use and reuse of existing buildings, such as those built for the Olympics. Regarding the principles of green building, the first principle of green building is that the building is energy efficient. For example, it has windows that let in a lot of sunlight, but not heat or cold. The building also uses renewable energy sources, such as solar and wind power for some electricity, heating, and cooling. The second principle is that the building is designed to fit in well with the surrounding environment. For example, the landscaping uses local trees and plants. The third principle is resource conservation. This means the building materials that are used have some recycled content and come from local sources when possible. The fourth principle is that the building meets the community needs of the people who use it. For example, that there is easy access to public transport like buses and subways and shopping. And finally, the last principle is that it is often better to reuse an old building than to construct a new one. The reason is that reusing an old building saves resources. Now let's look at energy use in more detail. There are 2 goals: reduce energy use when the building is constructed, and reduce energy use when the building is used. During construction, attention is paid to the type of building materials used. For example, builders may use renewable materials like bamboo. They may recycle stone and metal and use floors made from recycled materials like plastic water bottles and old tires. In addition, they use local materials when possible to avoid using energy to transport building materials from far away. The building design emphasizes using renewable resources, such as sunlight, wind power, and water, once the building is in use. Making a building comfortable for the people who use it is obviously very important. Whether this means keeping it warm or keeping it cool, of course, depends on the climate of where the building is located. In a northern European country like Germany, windows and landscaping can be designed to take advantage of the sun in the winter. For example, a building with more south-facing windows brings in sunlight and warmth. Trees can be planted to provide shade to the building during warm months, yet allow warm sunshine in when the leaves are gone during cold winter months. In warmer climates, such as in Egypt, buildings can be designed to let in less strong sunlight in the middle of the day, yet allow in enough natural light for people to see without turning on lamps or lights. In addition, trees can be planted to block some sunlight year-round, which will help reduce the amount of energy needed to keep the building cool. There are many examples of green building projects that use energy efficiently, such as Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates, which is an entire city designed to be completely powered by renewable energy. Another is the Bahrain World Trade Center, which has wind turbines that produce around 13% of the tower's total power needs. And then there's the Sun Life Center in Manila, the Philippines, which has windows that let in light but block heat and noise, and thus lower air conditioning costs by about 35%. A green building doesn't need to be new, though. Taking that into consideration, now let's turn to reuse of existing buildings. The main reason to reuse old buildings is that it saves limited natural resources like wood and metal. Earlier, I mentioned reusing Olympic facilities. Let's look at some examples of how Olympic buildings were transformed. The facilities from the Sydney, Australia Olympics of 2000 were turned into a huge public park. The Aquatic Center in Beijing was converted to an enormous indoor water park where people can swim. Barcelona converted Olympic buildings to university dorms for students. After the 2012 Olympics, London created Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. A different example of reuse is Namba Parks in Osaka, Japan, which was built from a former baseball stadium. By reusing the stadium, the builders saved a lot of building materials. It is designed so that people don't have to use energy to travel far to meet their needs. They can live and work, shop, and enjoy entertainment right there. Do we have to choose between meeting current needs or future needs? The answer is no. If we expand our use of green building, we can achieve the goal of doing both.
Track 7.3. Unit 7. Speaking Skill. Student 1.
I never thought about kindness as being part of our desire to survive. It seems to me it's possible. In my view, we don't consciously calculate that if I help someone, they will help me. It's more that we take care of one another because, well, that's just what we do for our friends, our families, people we know.
Student 2.
There was the part about how people risk their lives for others and how, in some ways, that goes against our personal desire to survive. I recently read an article about a house fire. A man was leaving for work, and he noticed flames shooting from the top of his neighbor's house. He helped his neighbors escape, even though he ended up getting injured. Fortunately, everyone was saved, and he wasn't seriously hurt.
Student 3.
That's lucky. Talking about strangers helping strangers, there was the point that following natural disasters, the global community responds because it's to everyone's survival advantage to do so. I recently saw online that there was an earthquake in Pakistan, many countries sent aid, and there were several bad earthquakes in Haiti, after which emergency supplies were contributed from all over the world.
Student 4.
Yeah, the main point was that building those bonds of reciprocity is important both locally and globally, and that there is both direct and indirect reciprocity. As I understand it, direct is like last week when you helped me prepare for the history exam, and then I helped you review for biology. In contrast, indirect is I did that for you, and then you help another friend, and at some point, a third friend does something for me, right? We all trust we will help one another, and it's not just with friends. It's between family members, shopkeepers, governments, people locally and globally.
Track 7.4. Unit 7. Pronunciation for speaking. 1.
Where does the city get its water from?
2,
Does the city process salt water to use for drinking water?
3,
That water is used for drinking?
4,
The village doesn't have any water?
5,
When do they usually have water shortages?
Track 7.5, Unit 7, Pronunciation for Speaking. 1,
What are ways people can use less water at home?
They can take shorter showers. They can reuse water.
2,
I read some cities get water from melting ice caps in the mountains.
Cities get water from melting ice caps? I didn't know that.
3,
Are there really water shortages everywhere?
Well, not absolutely everywhere, but it is a serious global problem.
4,
How can water be used efficiently in public buildings?
One way is to collect rainwater to use for landscaping.